Welcome guys, and in today's video I'm going to show you how I mix my colors. I'm going to go off just the same exact setup I had for my last video. I mix my ink in the tube and I'm going to show you how we go about doing that. First I want to set up all my colors here. I have the exact same setup I had from the last video. So I'm going to get gloved up, gloves. Before we start pouring ink, I want to show you how I get my ink caps to stick to these sticks, which I then stick to the tray, and it just creates much more of an organized and streamlined effect. So the first thing that we do, take our tongue depressor. I use any kind of A&D ointment you can find. It's cheap, it's easy, and we're not using it on the skin. In this case, we're just putting it on the piece of stick. We take the next one and repeat the process. Like so. Now I do the same thing, only a thin layer on top. I use an ink cap to just smooth out that. And all that A&D does is just allow my ink cap to stick to, well, the stick. Okay, with our ink caps all set up, now we can start pouring our ink. It's very important that you shake your ink really well before you pour it, or you're going to get some separation, and it's just not the best result. In this case, I went and shook all these before I even put them on the table to save you time and me time. So now we're just going to pour them in there the exact same way I did before. So you can see our ink has been poured out. I left a little bit of space in each one because I want to cut it with a little bit of solution. I only add just a couple drops of mixing solution to my ink. All it does is just make it a little bit easier to use, a little bit thinner, and that can really help the ink go into the skin smoother. So that's what I use. This is actually a shading solution. You should use a color solution, but I find that this works great for me. So all I do is I put like 1 or 2 drops in each cup. At this point, you could take a needle, flip it over, use the end of it, and spin that inside each one of these little caps, and that will mix it up. However, when I go to do it, I use my machine to mix all of them as I use them. And I'm going to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. First, I wanted to get this set up so you can see what we're doing. Another thing I added here were these 2 cups of water. You can have as many cups of water as you want. I did the same thing as before. I just took a little bit of that A&D, put a dab of it at the bottom, and set it there. And now I don't have to worry about it falling over. This one, I did the same thing. I already put some water in there. I want to show you guys real quick. This is all we're using, distilled water for our rinsing cups. That's what those are for rinsing our needles out. And this is what we're using, distilled water. I believe it goes without saying, throw these away, don't reuse them, but I'm gonna say it anyhow just in case. Normally your needle configuration is a really big deal, but here it is not because I'm just showing you guys. So we'll be loading up our machine with the 15 mag Cheyenne needle cartridge. Again, if you guys want to know exactly how to use these colors, how I shade color, how I pack color in, go check out my last video. It'll talk about the voltage that I'm running and various things. So if you're curious, go check that out. I'll have it linked again somewhere up here. We're gonna tint a color. So the simplest thing you can do is just tint a color. So let's say I'm going in with this red right here, right? I filled my ink, filled the tip of my needle up with it. I got plenty of it in there. Here we go, I'm going to work. There we go, I got that red ink in the skin. And to lighten that up, all you do is come over here and grab yourself a little bit of white a few times. And now we have a lighter red. You can add a little bit more back to it, maybe even touch into a little bit of this purple, back into a little bit of white, a little bit of purple, touch the red. Very similar, but you can see it has a little bit more of a purplish tone to it. So that is as quick as that goes. You can just make those 3 colors. And as you move along the tattoo, you can see that, hey, I want a little bit more of a darker tone here. I want a little bit of a lighter. I want to put this color in there. And you can do that right there on the fly. So I'm gonna keep messing with red because my tube is full of red. So there's no need for me to keep cleaning in between reds. I'm just gonna jump from one to the next. If I have a light red in there, does it really matter if I throw some maroon, almost like a deep brown in there? Not really. That light red's not gonna affect it too much. It will a little, and that might give you a nice cool effect. So, but for the most part, as you can see, that is pretty much maroon. We can alter the colors very easily. We can take a bit more of that red, maybe even a little bit of the white, and then just a touch of the brown. And now we have a totally different tone. A little bit more on the red side, not so much on the brown side. So that is simply working with white and the colors within your own color base. If you're working in red, all I'm doing is bouncing between a few different tones and adding some whites. That's pretty much that. That's the simplest way to do it. Stay within your reds, mix a little bit of white, use some browns. Now, if I'm moving on to another color, I will rinse my needles off. But let's say I'm still playing around in the red and I'm trying to find a certain orange color or just a lighter color. So I'm gonna keep what I have in the tube right now, and I'm gonna jump into a little bit of this really light yellow. Not much difference yet, so I'm gonna dive in there again. Okay, a little bit more maybe. And you can see how you can very quickly take a color and blend it all the way out flawlessly by mixing those colors right there in the tube. So the other thing I want to do is come over here and I will grab some straight orange, and I'm going to grab a little bit of this purple, and you get a totally different color. So that's how I'm mixing those in the tube. Now let's say I have done all my red work, I have jumped back and forth, and I'm ready to clean it off. We're gonna dip them into a little bit of water, kind of rotate it around with your hand, dip it a little bit, dip it a little bit. Then you take a paper towel and you just kind of gently wipe it. Go back in there again, gently wipe it, and you can even jump into a really clean bath right there, and you're good to go. So that's it. Ink is cleaned off. I'm ready to rock onto the next color. As you may have noticed as we've been going along here, that the ink is getting, well, other ink colors in it. So the white's got a bit of red in it. This has got a bit of that in it, a little bit of yellow. It's okay. You might need to pour yourself a couple of key cap colors that you know you're gonna use. If you know you're gonna be using a lot of white, pour yourself a couple caps of white. If you know you're gonna use a lot of X color, pour several caps of that. And if a color gets really tarnished up to where it's just like, wow, it's got way too much in it, you might need to just pour another cap. But for the most part, it works flawlessly for me. Okay, now we're gonna start with the yellows again. So I dip into a little bit of the yellow. I just wanna show you that real quick. There's that bright yellow. Now I could even stay in my yellow realm here, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of this, and just kind of mute it a touch. See that? It's just muted, just a touch. You have the bright yellow, and now we're muted a little bit. Now if we go from that bright yellow and dip into a little bit of that really dark orange, now you get a completely different color. So you start to see what's happening here. So you want to darken a color up. It can be a really great option, and a lot of people love to dip into like a gray wash, a little bit of black to get a darker color, and you can do that. But I believe that kind of gives your tattoo a little bit of a murky look, because that black blends with those colors and kind of does what it does. There's another way to get dark tones in an area where there's dark color, and it's simply that way. You just grab a dark color. So let me show you. So if we dip into this purple here, plum color, you see that's a nice dark tone. You can mix this dark color with other colors to give it a little bit more of a deep feel. You can do this with browns, reds, greens. You can do it with anything. Pick a darker tone and mix that with your color, and you're gonna get way more of a dynamic look. Let me clean off these needles again. We're in the water first. Out of the water. Wipe it off, and there's a little bit fresher water. And we are ready to rock. Same thing goes with our greens. We'll start with a little bit of this light green. There we go. We got a light green. Now, if you don't have a light green, but you want a light green, go into whatever green you have. Grab a little bit of a yellow. Oh, not enough yellow. And you can start creating your own colors, essentially. Half of this, guys, is just testing stuff out. This is the fun part. You get to see what colors mix to do different things. If you learn color theory, then you can save yourself a lot of time and a lot of ink. But nonetheless, this is still a great way to learn. So I went with that same green right here. As you can see, I'm dumping it on there. Let's mix that green with a little bit of this bright orange. And it should give us some sort of a brownish look. See that? A little bit of a brownish look. So if you were doing some green and instead of putting black at the base to create that shadow, you could put a little bit of this green brown. It's a little bit more of a natural look, and you can adjust it with a little bit more orange, a little more dark greens, but it's all right here available for you. This is your palette. Mix them and make them how you want them. There is one time when you really want to make sure that your needles are immaculately clean, and that's when you're going to go and put white in. Some people will change the complete needle configuration at the end for a completely fresh needle when putting in white ink. And the importance there is that you don't want any contaminants. You're looking for white. White is hard enough to get it to really stay in the long run, so anything else in there is just going to throw the color off. So we want a pure white as we can get. That's the one time where you might want to spend an extra minute and clean your needle, or just switch to a completely different needle that's fresh and do it that way. There are some serious downsides to mixing your ink in the tube. One of those is consistency. If I do a tattoo today and I pre-mixed all these colors in my tube and put it on your skin, and when it heals, it needs a little bit of a touch up, I don't have that bottled ink. I created that in my tube. So it is important to kind of keep an understanding of the colors you're using and the idea of how you mix them. You can keep notes on each one of your clients, and you can note the type of skin they had. You can note the colors that you use. You don't necessarily have to write down, I mixed this color with this color with this color, but if you have, like I have here, these are the same colors I used the other day on that tattoo. So I know if I have this same palette, I should be able to work that tattoo and get those colors blended back properly, or touch up anything that may need it. So that is a downside to mixing things in the tube. That's pretty much the only downside for me. I will say it is still important to think about the tattoo before you do it. Know what colors that you want in it. Know, hey, I want these reds, I want these yellows, I want these greens, I want this, you have a vision for it in your head so that you can give yourself the best palette to work from. Okay, but like I said, if you only have a few colors, that's fine. You can mix and make any color you want. So I hope you guys learned something today, and if you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the bell if you want to get notifications when I post. Till next time, guys, peace.